Yeah,
So
you will.
Josh is just saying, no, I won't. Josh was just saying, he brought up a good point. I thought it might be a good opener, just to jump right into the technical stuff, intel stuff that we've done over the years. That it's like if a law enforcement agency, whether that's local, state, even federal, is running operations against the cartel, right? One of the things you're going to need is probably some human intelligence sources within that organization. You can't do it all with SIGINT. You can do a lot, but not all of it. And Josh made a good point. I'll just let you take it.
No, I was saying you have to validate your assets, right? You have to make sure that the information that you're getting, you've got to check the veracity of it. And if you don't protect your assets, one of two things are going to happen. The organization that you're working against, they're either going to find those assets, they're going to illuminate your network, and they're going to, those assets are going to wind up in a barrel full of acid south of the border, or they're just going to poison the data that those assets are providing to you. And then you're going to operate off of bad data because you've not put any checks to validate those assets, as we call it, asset validation, operational risk management, whatever the new term, the new term is. But that you have to have that in place, and you have to have that in place beforehand. And you have to go in. It's like Reagan said, you got to trust but verify. You've got to go in and you've got to operationally test those assets. And there's just your imagination is really your only limit as far as validating them. But you have to validate the individual that you're getting it from, and you have to validate the information that they're providing. And I have yet to see a law enforcement organization at the state or local level who does that. I've yet to see it. I have not seen it, and I've interacted with a lot of them. I've yet to see any organization that does that at that level.
So Josh said that one of two things are going to happen. Either, that asset that is being run by, name the state agency, cartel finds out about it because they're running shitty tradecraft, the state agency. Josh said there's two things that might happen in that situation. Either the person's going to end up dissolving in a barrel, being transported back everywhere, or they're going to flip that guy, pay him more money, give him a good beating, and run him against that state agency. If you had a choice, you're a cartel guy, you're El Roger Jefe. Which one are you going to do, and why?
I mean, you're flipping the dude, and that's, I tell you, I think it's Josh. You're spot on. It's overlooked. Half of them don't even know that it's going on. The other 25%, doesn't believe that's happening to them and their organization. The other whatever remaining percent don't care, right? Because we've run into a lot of those folks just throughout our careers. You got some that are like, no, nothing happening here. No way. Trust everybody, right? And we run into those folks. And then you got those that are like, well, it might be happening here, but what do I care? It doesn't impact me. It's like, really? It doesn't impact you at all when you've got somebody working for the other side that's filtering and changing the information that's being provided to you. I mean, you're steering that. I mean, we have things for that, right? But you try to flip them, and I think you see it all the time. I mean, you look historically, you look at corruption cases and ties to the cartel. I mean, that's what they've been doing. And at the end of the day, it's the person who's being flipped. I mean, especially when you're dealing with a cartel, you're not dealing with Constitution, right? Like, you have no rights. Like, I'm going to kill you. I'm going to cut your head off, and I'm going to shoot your dog. Or you're going to come work for us. It's kind of like you said, you pay them a little bit of money, give them a good beat down, threaten the family. And you know what? When you're dealing with a cartel and some other state sponsors of terrorism out there, it's very, very effective. It's not like in a U.S. where it's like cop comes up, oh, you go F yourself. I know my rights. I plead the fifth. I don't have to talk to you. Or so, yeah, that works great here in the States with law enforcement, other U.S. citizens, whatever. Doesn't work great with the cartel. They don't give a shit. Just cut your finger. How many fingers do I need to cut off before you say yes? You get to the point where it starts to pinch my pinky, then I'm probably singing a different tune, right? But they just don't, they don't want to believe that's happening to them, and some of them are just ignorant. I mean, there is a small percentage that are just ignorant to the process and the fact that actually exists, right? Or maybe not ignorant to the fact that it exists, but it's like man, I've never really thought about it towards my organization, because they may not think that it's important, the information they have, what they can provide, their own placement access or whatever. So there is a small percentage, but that's what gets even more frustrating when you try to educate that small percentage. That's when you get, well, it's just not happening here. Wouldn't happen to us.
So percentage wise, I'll give you my answer and you guys can disagree with me or not. Percentage wise, let's go federal, state, and local. Okay. Federal agencies, state agencies, law enforcement, and local agencies. I'm going to ask you guys, I'm going to give my answer first. Which of those agencies do you think are the most penetrated by hostile actors? Okay. On the federal level, I'm going to say with a high degree of confidence is Border Patrol. 100% is probably the most compromised agency in the federal government. State, that's a little tougher. I didn't give it a lot of thought, and I'm saying percentage wise, not how many, right? Because Texas obviously has way more federal law enforcement than Rhode Island, or state law enforcement than Rhode Island. So state level, I probably California, maybe. You'd be close between California and Texas. And then local, there's no doubt Dade County. Dade County has got to be the most compromised. I don't know, it could be San Diego, but probably Dade County. What do you think, Josh?
I can't speak to Border Patrol. You have more insight on that.
But it would make sense, right?
It would make it would make perfect sense. And I could see people wanting to penetrate Border Patrol, not just cartel. I could see, Texans wanting to penetrate Border Patrol. 100%, because you have facilitators right on this side of the border, obviously.
Yeah.
So I would say if Border Patrol, then I would say honestly, I would say FBI right after that.
Wow.
100%.
You think? I mean, let me ask you this about the FBI before you get to state and local. So the FBI vetting process is a lot more strenuous than Border Patrol, and that's why I didn't say FBI. Like the initial hiring vetting process, and that's I don't know. That's interesting. I'm sorry. Go ahead.
At the state level, if we're doing Texas and California, I would say at the state level, yeah, I would probably go with. I would honestly, man, I might even say Florida Highway Patrol.
Oh, I didn't think about that.
I might say 50. And again, right? So it's kind of hard because you have, obviously you have more insight into, where you live. Roger has more insight into where he lives. But I would probably go, Florida Highway Patrol. I remember growing up and I have friends in law enforcement in Florida. Dude, Florida Highway Patrol had some serious, serious issues, especially down south in Dade County, right? Where you were talking about, like back in the day, like it was not uncommon for them to catch Florida, state troopers helping out, pick your local Coke dealer, running, dude, just straight up running cocaine for them. So, local level, I do pick your sheriff's department, down south. Just pick sheriff's department, and I guarantee you, any single one of them has some significant issues. You think about every time you turn around, there's in the news, there's some deputy sheriff that's getting caught, getting arrested for something, and it's not like hooking up with the with the new trainee in the back room. Like, no, it's smuggling drugs, running guns, human trafficking. Like, it's legit. And I know most law enforcement now, even down at the local level, you got to take a poly, to get in, to graduate the academy. Like, you got to do it's it. But again, it's, yeah.
Dude, 10 years ago, I forgot about this. 5 to 10 years ago, I would have a different answer than Dade County because I said percentage wise. And I would say Starr County in Texas is a border county. I think they've kind of cleaned up their act. But dude, the sheriff was on the cartel payroll. The DA was on the cartel payroll. The judge was on the cartel payroll in Starr County. It's crazy. But I forgot about that. But now I think they've kind of cleaned it up. The Rangers came in and cleaned that up.
it's smart though on the cartel's part, because you go back and look, and we've all seen enough mafia movies, but you guys ever watch the actual like documentaries on La Cosa Nostra?
I've seen a few.
Right. So you go back and you look at any of the families and what they did. Who did they have on payroll? They had cops, they had lawyers, they had DAs. Right. They didn't go around killing cops and DAs because they knew that was going to bring the heat. Right. You start killing cops, that is like the weight of the world's going to come down upon you. And so, it's smart on the cartel's part to go in and be like, hey man, we can't go around killing border patrol agents. We can't go start killing cops, stuff like that. We've got enough cash. You're going to make them an offer they can't refuse at some point. And that's how they've gotten, the cartel has former U.S. military working for them, doing some very sensitive things, which is absolutely insane if people knew the true state of who's out there supporting the cartels here in the States. It's wild.
Okay, Seth Harp, whatever.
The Timu Sean Naylor.
So, Roger, what are your answers?
So I think on the federal level, man, y'all both missed the biggest one. It's Congress.
Oh, come on.
We're talking law
it's not an
agencies.
agency. Good point.
After the Swalwell stuff, and that leads right into California. Swalwell and Feinstein, both from where? California. No, it's funny because when you guys were going back and forth, you look it up, and I put it into Chat GPT, and so it would do some little analysis or whatever. And Chat GPT says by likelihood of having the most actual forward agent assets, talking about double agents, FBI number one, DOD, the military, CIA, NSA, then the State Department. I might actually move the State Department a little higher than that.
But then I'm talking hostile actors, though, because, that's probably looking at like espionage.
It is. It's just, I'm just reading what typed in here. As far as
State Department is definitely, I would put that number one. I would put that number one.
And
witting or unwitting.
Dude, it's probably a tie. Like when you look at your state and your local levels, you take any of our border states. I mean, there's no doubt in my mind there's a lot of corruption, as far as Arizona as a state. And when you look at your county law enforcement offices, especially those who are along the border, because, one, they cover a lot of area. It's not very robust, right? Yeah, make no money. It's not a very robust capability. And especially you look at the rhetoric over the last decade, it's like you look at the reputation, some to their own doing, but you look at the reputation of police officers. And even now, I mean, on the left, just constantly, trying to defund the police, screw the police, hate the police. And so you've sown this trust among, the American citizens, the Americans that live here. So it's like, hey, man, again, the right amount of money, like Josh said, they don't necessarily want to be schwacking cops or this and that. So what do? You put them on the payroll. And when you look at the amount of stuff that they're moving anyway, especially when you get to like the narcotics and the drugs, I mean, dude, it's a drop in the bucket, right? I mean, they, that we already know they're factoring to lose certain, percentage of the drugs that come across anyway. Yeah, that's $30 million. That's fine. Because $300 million made it in. So I think you take any of our border states and it goes all the way down to that local level where, you get down to, Pinell County or Pima County. Like Pima County one is Democrat anyway. And you're pretty close to the damn border. There's no doubt in my mind, So, yeah, I think, and Texas, I wouldn't surprise me with Texas, and then California just by the fact that it's California, and you could probably say that what states have the heaviest immigration population. How much of that? I mean, I know it goes a little bit outside your purview, but you just go, just basic insider threats. I mean, like hell, man, you look at Minneapolis. Or you look at Dearborn, Michigan, it's probably pretty daggum high, right? Because they don't even have loyalties to us. So who they're going to have it to? They're going to have it back to Somalia or whatever the hell.
And you guys were talking about the reasons they don't do it. And I agree with you. Ignorance, hubris. I agree with that 100%. The reasons they don't do it. But they also don't understand the return on investment to flipping somebody like you guys are saying. It's crazy. And another reason they don't do it, finally, is that what Josh and Roger are talking about, what we're talking about right now, flipping somebody, cartel, or whether it's DOD or whoever is flipping somebody to be a double. It takes a lot of work. It takes a lot of patience. Like Josh was saying, with the asset validation, the operational testing, all this stuff, it's a lot of effort. And whether and again, they don't see the return on investment. They're like, well, geez, you just bogged me down with 8 hours of extra paperwork per week minimum just to have this program. I don't have time for that. I've got to get out on the street and bust these drugs and all this stuff. And it's like, you're not seeing the return on investment. You are thinking 6 months in advance, not where this is going to take you 5 years from now. So, again, it goes back to Roger. It's just ignorance. They don't understand. They haven't been trained. They haven't been exposed. So it's a bit frustrating. It's a bit frustrating to see, but I would chalk a lot.
But go to your post that you posted earlier, because that's the other side of it too.
Oh,
when you
yeah.
talk about the arrests and convictions, because they don't necessarily see the advantage of like, hey, I can influence the decision-making process, right?
Yeah.
Of another organization or whatever. And I would tell you that when it comes to law enforcement, I'll let you give you a second so you can pull it up. Like when it comes to law enforcement and stuff like that, they're not looking to influence the decision-making process. They're looking at that conviction. So I'll let you read your quote and go into it.
Yeah, and I was having a conversation with somebody today. This person was upset that they were not informed a while back that something was probably going to go down. And they kind of had a legit complaint. They did have a legit complaint because they were part of the planning process, whatever. It's a whole long story. So I actually texted him, and then I copied it and sent it to Josh and Roger. And I was like, well, yeah, I'll just put this on X. I just said, here's the thing. Cops don't just want to prevent a crime or mass casualty attack. They're also just as concerned with a conviction. So they tend to let the planning of the crime or whatever it is, they tend to let the planning go until they believe, along with the DA, that there's enough evidence to convict. That's why they'll keep it close hold so they won't compromise the case. The problem is sometimes the person will snap before they have enough to make the case. It's why the FBI so often says he was on our radar after an attack. Instead of preventing the attack or the crime, they were trying to build a case for conviction. And, and somebody else commented on there and they said, that's one of the reasons, people say, throw Tim Walz in jail, throw whoever in jail, Swalwell. And I'd like to get Josh's thoughts on Swalwell. It's like they were trying to build a case, maybe. I'm going to give them the benefit of the doubt and say they were trying to build a case, not just turning their back. There's probably a case file somewhere. They just didn't have enough, because what do we always say? Man, espionage is very hard to prove, and get a conviction. It's got to be rock solid. That's why a counterintelligence investigation is so exhaustive, so difficult, and manpower intensive. But Josh, with Swalwell, I feel like I'm living in the reverse of the Mandela effect on this one. I thought we all knew that information. So when it came out, I'm like, well, yeah, we kind of all knew about Fang Fang. We knew what was going on. And this comes out and it's all like, oh, this is a big revelation. Oh my gosh. I'm like, yeah, dude, we all kind of knew that.
Duh.
I feel like I'm losing it a little bit.
I think, yes, but I don't know that we knew the rest of the details. So apparently we didn't know the FBI was trying to flip her, right? We didn't know that her parents were both tied to, senior leadership in the MSS. And we didn't know that she planted 2 employees in Swalwell's office. And she looks like she also planted another intern or staffer in somebody else's office. Right. So we didn't know that. So those are new. And at the same time, you guys remember Swalwell was running for governor, and then he's saying the FBI is interfering in the governor election, right? The governor's election of California. He was on the news talking about that. Well, he was trying to head that off, because from now, what it looks like is the FBI, basically Pelosi shut down anything that had to do with the FBI actually looking at Swalwell, because apparently Swalwell knew about Fang Fang's connections back to the MSS. So the whole, like, when he came out, when that whole thing broke, I mean, like you said, it's been out for years. When that whole thing broke, he pleaded innocent. He was like, well, I didn't know, blah, blah. Well, that's not what the documents, the newly declassified documents say. He was actually told while they were investigating Fang Fang that, hey, she is with the MSS, because apparently they interviewed him, right? Deposed or whatever you want to, whatever term you want to use. And he was like, oh no, we hooked up. Yeah, we hooked up, but I never knew anything like that. Well, yeah, he did know, because the FBI told him when he's, coming out, when he's running for governor, and he's accusing Trump and he's accusing all these other people of, cooperating and, cohorting with a foreign power. All the while, he was knowingly sleeping with a MSS, agent. So we knew, but I think there were some granular details that were not known that are new in those docs that people are kind of coming to realize. What kills me though is that where he was allowed, he was put on the House Intelligence Committee while he was under investigation, like while the FBI was investigating Fang Fang, while the FBI knew about the thing, and the FBI told Pelosi, here's what's going on. And Pelosi didn't do anything. She basically covered for him and went ahead and placed him on the House Intelligence Committee. So to Roger's point earlier, between Swalwell, Feinstein's driver, who, Roger, he was her driver for 20-something years?
20 years.
Right? Come back. Guess what he is? He's connected to the MSS. Now, right? And people were like, not everybody from China is a spy. I'm going to tell you right now, there's a thing called the state secrets law. You should go look it up. You are duly enjoined to help the Ministry of State Security, wherever you're at in the world. You are enjoined to help. And if you don't, guess what's going to happen to Gam Gam? Gam Gam's not getting her B12 shot, and she's going to go make Nikes and iPhones out with the Uyghurs. So,
and in addition to that, with that state secrets law, right? China sees it a little bit differently than Russia or the US or whatever, specifically Russia. The way China sees, especially the CCP, the way they see it is, dude, if you're third generation Chinese living overseas and you are a full-on US citizen, you're still subject to the CCP. That's the way they see it. That's why there's secret police forces in major cities, Chinese police forces in major cities enforcing the law. It's like, that's the way they see it. Now, your third, generation Chinese person, they don't see it that way. Well, a lot of them don't, but most of them don't. But the Chinese do. So it's even worse, dude. And I think y'all have an idea of how compromised the university systems are. Oh, brother, man, it's scary. Speaking of university systems, Roger, you got that Penn State thing pulled up?
I didn't pull it up. I caught it on, I caught like the ass end of it. So basically a bunch of fraternities were using like their hazing sessions or whatever to run cocaine. Where was it from? It was somewhere close to the neighboring state.
New York and New Jersey, I think. Yeah. Philadelphia and New York. Yeah. They were making trips there to buy cocaine in bulk. It's like, why don't you guys just whatever? God, these rich fraternity kids, Josh, because Josh said he hadn't heard it. It was 2 fraternities, 13 defendants. So 14 are charged. Yeah, Roger said it. They were buying cocaine in bulk, cut and packaged primarily at these 2 fraternity houses off campus and distributed mainly to Penn State students in bulk. Payments were often in cash or apps. Yeah, so that's a lot of cocaine, man. And cocaine is kind of expensive. Last I heard.
That's crazy. It's not, you know what though? I mean, dude, at least, college kids are enterprising. They're just trying to hustle, dude. Groceries are expensive these days. Gas is $3.75 a gallon. Hey, man, the economy's hard times. They're just saving up for that down payment on that house when they graduate.
Dude,
back to the Swalwell thing real quick, because Kevin McCarthy was on today and they were asking him about, Swalwell and Fang Fang and whatever. And he said he had the conversation with Pelosi, and really what it came down was it's too much of an embarrassment to have to pull somebody off of that committee and the Democrats would have to admit that they had somebody that was exploited and vulnerable. So we just leave them on there. Insane, dude.
Insane. But you're going to send that poor little submarine sailor to jail for 180 days for posting a picture of a sub. His ass is going to jail. So, well, man, you're good. You can have access to, some of our most sensitive classified information on the House Intelligence Committee.
Speaking of
literally
Navy,
sleeping with it. Insane.
So our first episode for those of you idiots who have been around since our very first one was about what was it, Captain Crozier and the USS whatever it was, when he whined and complained so much. Roosevelt. He whined and complained so much and handled it so poorly that it was combat ineffective because there was a bad cold that broke out. And what's funny about that X post, Josh, I don't know if you went back and looked at it, the one I made about Crozier. 2 retired, I'm guessing, Navy captains got into a heated exchange about whether whether what he did was right or wrong. And these guys, based on what they were saying, I didn't really agree with either one of them, to be honest. But you could tell maybe they weren't retired captains, but they are retired officers. And the lingo that they were using was, they seemed to know what they were talking about. But now it's the USS, is it the Lincoln in the Persian Gulf? Yeah. So these sailors are complaining that, and they have been out there a while, 8 months, 6-8 months, something like that. They've been out there a while, and
I think it's like 200 days, 200 plus days or something like that.
We don't have any milk. I had to eat my my cinnamon toast crunch with no milk, Mom. And man, Mark Kelly, the senator from Arizona, he is all over it. They're mistreating our troops. And then one of the pictures that one of the news outlets was using, Roger, I don't know if you saw this. It was a picture of the cafeteria with the concrete.
Yeah.
The prison.
And I think Buzz, whatever his name is on X, he was the one that pointed it out. He's like, hey, since when did they start building aircraft carriers with concrete, with cinder blocks? But what are your thoughts on that? All the Gen X GWAT guys and some of the millennial GWAT folks are like, man, you don't know how hard I had it. All this stuff. Do they have a point, or do the sailors on the Lincoln have a point, or what? Or do you think this is all just fake and gay?
Dude, it's
definitely gay because it's a Navy. Is it fake?
Yeah. Soldiers, sailors, Marines, everybody bitches, right? It's just what happens. And how many people are on board an aircraft carrier? It's like, what, 10,000 people?
It's like 5,000.
5,000 people. So, you're going to have a certain percentage that, life sucks. I hate it here. Well, you know what? You shouldn't have joined the Navy. If you didn't want to be on a boat with 5,000 other men, then you probably shouldn't join the Navy. So, you're going to get people that are angry that way. I don't think, resource wise and stuff like that, like, dude, they had food. I think I've seen enough other photos that are like, hey, my daughter's on that ship, my son's on that ship, yada, yada, yada. Here's her plate, whatever. And the fact is, if you're having to use made up photos from prison or from a prison to try to portray life in the cafeteria on the USS Lincoln, it's just, what's amazing to me is, well, one, it's politics. Maybe it's not amazing to me, but it's how quick these people jump on this stuff. And specifically Mark Kelly and Ruben Gallego, can't stand either one of them, but it's how quick they are to jump on any of this stuff. And it's like zero due diligence. Now, if there's legitimate concerns, right, where that stuff is really happening, like, hey, we're out of toilet paper, we're out of toothpaste, it's one piece of salami and a half a slice of bread or something like that, obviously address that stuff. But nobody does any due diligence. They just use it because they hate Trump. So they're going to run with it, and the media is not going to hold them accountable, because everything you look in the media, I read it, CNN and ABC. One anonymous source, his mother's father's grandfather's babysitter that lived next door, told me that they had to eat Spam this morning. And that's what they run with. Right. And so they get their little clickbait, they get their little headline. Nobody looks into it. Nobody reads into it. And then all of a sudden I'm just confused because I vaguely remember them bitching about us eating steak and lobster a couple months ago. So, so I guess where we should be, what we should be eating, feeding the troops, is somewhere between Spam and steak and lobster. Right. So steak and lobster is too hoity toity. spam's, too low. So maybe, I don't know, just like a cheeseburger. Is that like middle of the road or something like that, or some fish and chips? That's middle of the road. So I don't know, man. Are we feeding them too well, or we're not feeding them well enough? It's just all click. It's all sound bites. It's they have nothing on policy. And what's actually surprising to me with Gallegos and Mark Kelly, and we've said this before, the one weak spot or the major weak spot that the GOP is going to have in this midterm, it's affordability, right? Now, again, we can go back and you can talk about inflation under Joe Biden and all that stuff. We got all that. But at the end of the day, people are looking at what they're paying for groceries, what they're paying for gas. The affordability is the buzzword. That's what you need to hit home on, because that's going to affect the majority of the population. Instead, you're going to talk about some fictitious kid eating spam on the USS Lincoln, 32,000 miles away, that they don't care. That's not going to help them out in the midterms at all, one bit. So if anything, I think it kind of detracts and takes away from that message, because if I'm the DNC leadership, which now, no longer exists because it's now DSA, I'm like, hey, every other word out of every candidate's mouth needs to be affordability. And that's what you run on.
I saw the, following the whole USS Lincoln controversy. And look, a lot of our listeners know this. Deployments suck. Long deployments really suck. But it sucks. It does. It sucks. There's no other way around it. You know what? Our parents, our grandparents, they had they had really shitty deployments too. Vietnam, I'm sure, that was no treat. Spending in a year there. You talk about World War II, the different theaters, they didn't get to come home like we did in between, trips like that. I'm not going to say that theirs was harder than ours. Ours was hard in different aspects, but it's just like they suck. And if you're going to complain after 200 something days because you haven't got a port call, you haven't got, you've got to eat your Fruit Loops, with powdered milk, or, you just got to raw dog it dry. Bro, I'm gonna tell you right now, that shit falls on deaf ears with me. Like, you guys said one, you shouldn't have joined the Navy if you don't want to be stuck on a ship. But it's, what? I didn't want to be stuck on a ship either. So I didn't join the Navy. It's really that simple. And number two, dude, just, you got to deal with it, and you guys have heard me tell this story. I was in Iraq 12 straight months in Mosul during the height of the sectarian violence, right? We were averaging 80 plus SIGACs a day. Every time you went out, it got chippy.
What year was that? I'm sorry. I didn't hear the year. What year was that?
2005.
Okay.
So we got there 2005. We left 2006. Literally, the MPs were walking away from our platoon Connex. They had just inspected it, banded it. We had turned in all our ammo. We had turned in all our kit. Like, we were getting on a C-130 the next day to fly to Baghdad to get on a C-17 to come home. We were going to fly to Kuwait and then, get on whatever that chartered, the chartered birds were. Somebody came up, it's like, hey, brigade commander, brigade sergeant major, want all the E7s and above over in the theater on Mares. Right. So, all the E7, we all started heading that way. We're like, oh, we're going to get the, hey, attaboy, good deployment. Now's the most dangerous time. Don't let the Joes go crazy. And, we'll see you on the ground back in Alaska. That was absolutely not what they said. They said, unpack all your shit. We're going to Baghdad for 4 more months. And so, we had 300 dudes on the ground in Alaska. They had to pack their shit up and come back. And we had dudes that were already home from Alaska, came back. They got killed in Baghdad. And so when I hear, and it sucked, it sucked. And you know what? Joe did what Joe did. Joe bitched about it. As long as Joe's bitching, you're good. It's when Joe stops bitching, that's when you have to worry. That's when you have to be like, okay, something's wrong. Either Joe's about to become part of the 22 a day, or Joe's about to make me part of the 22 a day. Something. It's like
when you don't hear anything from your kids for 30 minutes. You're like,
yeah,
uh-oh.
Yeah. Something's bad happening upstairs. So deal with it. Get over it. It sucks. It sucks. You're on a ship. You're not being shot at every day. You're generally not in danger unless you get too close to the edge, and even then you got little nets that'll catch you. Like just stay out from behind the jets when they take off. You it sucks. Just bitch about it. Do your job. Shut the F up. But it just, and the whole, like the other one, right? You saw with the, oh, look at this meal, right? With the center blocks. Did you see the aircraft that had like, all the pro-Israel stuff written on the wing? And then it had, all this other stuff written on the wing. And they're like, they said that this is on the aircraft carrier on this plane. And this is political messages. And this is just wrong. And this is what Trump said in the military. And somebody looked at it and was like, hey, I fly KC-135s, which is the refuelers. And they're like, those can't land on an aircraft carrier. So that's not on an aircraft carrier. Oh, and see the concrete tarmac under it? Yeah. The deck of an aircraft carrier, they're not concrete. So that's not, again, it goes back to, Roger's point. It's like, you don't even know what you're sharing and you're being mad about. It's, you're getting duped every which way, but Sunday, and dude, just stop it. Just stop it.
So I would hazard to guess that as much as we bag on Gen Z and millennials, that those that are bitching that are on the boat are probably few and far between. I would go out on a limb and say most of them are probably just doing their jobs. Your story, Josh, gosh, I was just cringing when you told that story, and you've told it before, not on the podcast, but I've heard that story before. And that is the soul crushing. It's like brutal, and you dealt with it, and you're a good man for doing it. But when I think of an aircraft carrier, I don't think of, the op tempo, even though the op tempo is probably pretty high. I think of the monotony of the kid that's working in the machine shop, for whatever his shift is. It's just that monotony, because I've had boring deployments. My worst deployment I ever had was my most boring, to Kandahar. It's just, there wasn't anything to do. And that's a long story, but the monotony started to get to me at about month 5. I was just like, I am going stir crazy. And I wasn't on a carrier. I was on this giant ass sprawling base, walking 7 miles a day. But the monotony on an aircraft carrier, I just can't imagine if you had like a monotonous job. Even the cooks, I bet the cooks are pissed right now on that aircraft carrier. I bet those kids are eating better than they've eaten in the entire deployment. Because the cooks are like, oh, not us. Don't piss the cooks off saying they're not serving good food. Oh, they'll show you.
It's so frustrating. When you look at it too, it sucked. It's 16 straight months, 16 consecutive months, deployed. Like, it sucked. But at the same time, who gets to say, come back and be like, I just got to do my job that I volunteered to do for 16 consecutive months, right, on a deployment. And I know that, again, the monotonous jobs, yeah, man, it kind of sucks. But at the end of the day, it's, it's like any MOS, complaining. It's like, brother, nobody made you choose that MOS. Unless you just scored so low on the ASVAB that the only thing you had to, the only thing you could pick was MP. Okay, I get that. It's fine. Right. But, the Navy, and I can't wait for Joe to chime in, because I know he's got a lot of stuff to say about this after he hears this. They have that saying, choose your rate, choose your fate. It's like, hey, man, if you don't want a shitty job, well, don't pick one. Pick a cool job. But what you're getting, though, is you're getting to do your job for 200 plus days because when that ship's, in port, you're not doing your job. You're painting, and your life is just generally sucking. So at least you're getting experience. You're getting reps and sets, man. You're getting a lot of reps and sets.
And Roger hasn't talked much, but I'll say this, and you guys had it worse than me, I think, because for the majority of my deployments, I had a lot. And when I say deployments, I'm not just talking about combat deployments. Being away is being away. Like when Josh shat all over himself in the elevator down in Bolivia, that's a great story. He was still away, and just because bullets aren't flying in your direction doesn't mean, it doesn't suck. But I'll go back and say this. The majority, I was not married, didn't have, didn't know of a family back. It was just me. And man, I love deployments, except for that one to Kandahar. Because, you know, there was a post on X the other day and Josh commented on it. And it was like, man, life is very straightforward when you're deployed. You are away from your
100%.
family, but for the most part, you know, 80% of the time, at least for the three of us, you knew you were going to eat that day. You knew you may not always know where you're going to sleep, but you knew you were going to sleep. You knew you're doing your job, like Josh said. Is some satisfaction to that. It's like, this is why I joined. Here I am. You know, this is great. But again, I didn't have a family back there waiting on me, and you know, having to do all those things that they have to do. So yeah, I think I had it better than y'all in that case. When I did deploy and I had the wife and the kids back, you know, thinking about them, it was harder. It was definitely hard. So I just want to throw that in there.
No, and you're right. It's all perspective, right? I mean, when you look at our generation, I mean, a lot has changed for us. And Josh had it the worst of everybody just because of the family aspect. I mean, you know, my last several deployments, married, had kids, but my first deployments, you know, early on in my career, like I was like, Luke, man, I was single. It's like, this is great, you know? But you also have to look at the time that we were deploying. Like my first deployment was 1997, 96, something like that, whatever. But, and you know, it was like to Haiti. And there, dude, I slept in a wooden chew with mosquito net over me, so I wouldn't get malaria every freaking day. You know, your shitter was the hot box, you know, and Haiti's hot, man. And your water, you know, I stood on 2x4s with the old mash showers that had a chain on it, and you just pull it down and it would let out some, you know, shitty cold water, and you couldn't let it run. I mean, you know, it's not like you could tie this thing down. You held it and wash. And back then I had hair, so you know, I had to like shampoo my hair and all that and whatever. And there was no phones or internet or anything like that. I got the Mars call. You remember the Mars gram that you were able to do? And then, so I would do the Mars gram back home to my parents. And then we had a radio. It was hooked up to the Humvee like once a week, like on a Sunday, and it was half duplex. You could call to a terminal or call to a station, and they would actually relay to your house. So you could talk, you know, you got like 5 minutes. And of that 5 minutes, you actually got to talk like 15 seconds because the rest of it was relaying back and forth and whatever it was. But back then we didn't have Xbox, we didn't have internet, that type of stuff. You know, those, you know, addictions or things that we, you know, those crutches that we had, where a lot of the folks nowadays, like they grew up with Xbox, they grew up with PlayStation, they grew up with Wi-Fi everywhere, right? They grew up with smartphones. You got that stuff everywhere. And I think you're right, Luke. You look at like my last deployments, I loved it, man. I mean, being away from my family sucked, but man, I showed up and I'm like, man, there are porcelain toilets here, individual shower stalls. I've got internet, you know, I've got a phone. I can call home every night. I mean, it was just night and day. I think being on a ship would be a lot worse, because my guess is, especially with the USS Lincoln, you know, they used to have Wi-Fi and stuff like that on there, but I'm guessing where they're at now, there's probably very, very limited internet. They probably have some type of MWR or whatever. So, you know, you just look at it as being in a remote station for us, where it's like, well, you know what you're going to do? You're going to eat well and you're going to get fit. There's a gym on there. So I'm going to come back all jacked up. Right. And that's just what you do. I mean, that's kind of what we did. But, you know, again, looking back at our early days, there wasn't a whole lot to miss, because there wasn't a lot that existed yet. That stuff wasn't around. But you take a kid now that's 24 years old, that's had Wi-Fi their whole life. You know, it's like my kid, my oldest son, when he was young, and this is back before, you know, Wi-Fi in vehicles and internet in vehicles, whatever. He just didn't understand the concept of internet. He's like, what do you mean? You know, I've got my little iPad thing. What do you mean? I can't watch YouTube or whatever it was. It's like, well, no, son, you know, we only have internet in the house. We don't have it out here in the vehicle. And he's like, well, I just never not had that. You take your 24-year-old that's on the USS Lincoln, it's the same concept. Always had their smartphone, grew up on Xbox, PlayStation, whatever it is, Fortnite. Always had internet, Wi-Fi, hell, you know, probably travels with a Starlink, this and that. And all of a sudden, hey, you're now on the USS Lincoln and you're locked down for 200 days with, you know, none of that entertainment that you've had for your entire life. Right. And my guess would be that's where the bitching comes. And you look at a lot of the younger generation, you know, I think statistically is true. I think I've read something the other day where, you know, not a lot of them are gym rats, not like our generation. You know, Gen X, we tend to be, you know, pretty big gym rat. But I mean, we had Arnold Schwarzenegger. That's why, you know, you get the pumping iron or whatever, the one before us. But a lot of the younger folks aren't into that type of stuff. So what we look at as, outside of, missing the family, saying, man, put me somewhere where I can eat 3, 4, 5 meals a day and go work out and go to work and have my bed. Like, we're rocking and rolling, man. That's gold. But a lot of those kids, it's rough. So, I don't think it's the majority of them. I think the olders, are probably doing pretty well. And, at the end of the day, you're always going to have some people, but it doesn't matter what it is. You're always going to have a group that's bitching about whether it's the food or accommodations or whatever. And, I don't know if there's 5,000 people in that ship. One person could bitch to Mark Kelly or Ruben Gallegos, and that's what they're going to run with. And you're going to see it all over the New York Times and CNN.
So there's a scene. Oh, I'm sorry, Josh, go ahead.
No. Go ahead.
There's a scene in The Sopranos. It's my favorite episode. It's called, I can't even remember. It's the one where Christopher, have you watched Sopranos, Josh?
Yeah.
It's the one, I can't remember. It's the one where Christopher and Paulie get stuck out in the wilderness because they had to beat up that Russian, right?
Yeah.
And they're having an argument. They're having this goes back to the Lincoln. I'm going to kick it straight to you because I know you got stuff to say, and I do too, because things change, right? Situations change, and we're, whatever. And at one point, they're arguing in the van. They're freezing to death. They're starving, and they're arguing about, "Hey, Paulie, you shouldn't have hit the Russian." And Paulie goes, "I shouldn't have even been there." You have to see the episode, and we're talking about the Lincoln and all this, and I picture Josh saying, "Why are we talking about this? We shouldn't have even been there." Right? Yeah, because
That's
of the
right.
whole Iran thing. So, it's been a few episodes. I think it's been like 3 or 4 episodes. We're getting better at this. Since, we all three agreed that it's better if they wrap it up quick, and with the midterms approaching, I agree with Roger going back to what he said earlier. It's about affordability. And I don't think affordability can completely rest at the feet of the Strait of Hormuz thing. But it is coming up, and I don't see an end to this thing anytime soon. So, Josh, I mean, maybe we can kick it around, but I think you probably stand where you stood before, but maybe expand on it a little bit. Where do you see this going? What's the off ramp? There are no boots on the ground, but what are we doing?
Dude, it's a mess. And what is happening is exactly what I was afraid was going to happen. I will caveat this with Iranian senior leadership and those running the Iranian regime. They deserve to die. Right? They absolutely deserve. They deserve to be Soleimani'd every day of the week and twice on Sunday. So, when we talked about this, it was like, cool. Yes. All three of us agree like that. Hey, go in and, kill as many as you can, as fast as you can. I have no issue with destroying the Iranian regime for, what they've done to Americans for decades, right? You go all the way back, to the Marine barracks bombing in Beirut. And you go all the way up through GWAT, right? EFPs, Shia militia groups, PMCs, all that stuff. Yeah, they deserve to die, but you got to go in, you got to have a plan, and you got to wrap it up quick. They haven't done any of that. And right, I think you had some opportunities to off ramp. And I think, you missed those, and I don't know why, we missed them. But we're not winning. What are we on? We on the 5th negotiation now of a deal? None of them is stuck. And now the latest one, Iran's just like, we're just going to wait him out. Right. So it's like, okay, you didn't decapitate the regime. The IRGC still in charge, still running things. So I don't know what the plan is, because, there doesn't seem to be a coherent one. And, at the end of the day too, the president nor the Secretary of War owe the American people, this is our exact plan. You're not going to communicate that. But our record with regime change in the Middle East, it's not been great, fellas. It's not been great. And I don't see this one. I don't see this one going any better. I have more to say on it, but we'll go ahead and throw it over to Roger. But I've got a lot more to say on this because it's not having the intended effect.
I think it's hard to find the actual numbers. I mean, one, you got to get oil moving through there, which it looks like it's moving. I think it's still below the pace of where it was before the war. It's kind of getting up there. There's some workarounds where they're expanding land pipelines, looking at other routes or whatever. So you got to get oil. I think there's a couple other key items that are there. Oil is huge because that brings everything down as far as cost, right? As energy comes down, everything comes down. But I think there's some fertilizer.
For who?
What's that?
Who does it bring cost down for?
Well, for everybody. It's a global commodity. How does it not bring the cost down for everybody?
How much oil do we get from that goes through the Strait?
It doesn't matter. It's a global commodity and it's sold at that rate. And I'm not just talking about like gas. I'm just talking about general trucking because we export all our shit.
Yes. Okay. I'm just making that point that now that's
no,
closed,
I took it. Sorry, I got defensive. You.
No. Well, I was kind of because I thought you were being crazy. Yeah, I'm sorry to cut you off, dude, but that just struck me because now that the Strait is closed, and again, I didn't mean to cut you off. Go ahead. I'm sorry.
No, go ahead. Finish your thought because I think you may be misinterpreting what I was going to say.
No. I don't think I am. I was hoping that your thought process was in the right place, and it sounds like it is. But now that the Strait is closed, we know that China, and I love the way the media phrases this. They're like, China just decided to stop, to cut their imports by 40%. No, they didn't. Those imports, it is trickling in now. I looked at that a lot today. They're starting to get a little bit more through the Strait, a little bit, but they're still short. It's not just China. It's a lot of other countries get their oil through there. So what I think part of Trump's crazy logic, and I'm not quite following it, is like, okay, we're going to kick our exports up. But what does that do? Like Josh said, that kicks up prices at the pump for us. So if what I'm saying, Roger, and I don't know, I don't think I misinterpreted, whatever, is that if the Strait opens up, we stop exporting as much because it's going to be a glut. And maybe we start, replenishing the strategic reserve or whatever you want to call it. But it's like, can we find a middle ground? It's like between exporting, be the number one world's exporter of oil right now, and opening up the Strait. I think I didn't mean to cut you off. That was my bad, dude. I'm sorry.
No, my broader point to that piece is, to be honest with you, you find some, obviously oil is a big deal, fertilizer, a couple other things. As long as we don't have boots on the ground, dude, me personally, I love when Trump was like, hey, we're going to claim this as U.S. territory. I would make that damn thing a tour duty for U.S. Navy sailors. And we just control all access to the Strait from here on out for the rest of our, I couldn't care less. If anything, I'd probably agree with that. I think part of the going to Josh's statement, where there's been several offloads or attempts to, or chances, and, for whatever reason, Trump hasn't taken it. I think a large part, and I'm not smart enough to come up with this on my own, so I had to read this from somebody else and take their thoughts. But, what the IRGC did, they have what they call the mosaic strategy now, right? And a lot of that was because of Iraq. Because when we started schwacking leadership in Iraq, what happened, right? Everything started crumbling. And so the IRGC leadership since our time in Iraq has applied this mosaic strategy, which really there is no centralized command and control. And I think we actually did talk about this a couple episodes ago about who's actually in charge and who can you actually negotiate with. Because I'd probably say that most of our folks have negotiated with people they thought could make decisions and were operating in good faith, maybe as much as an Iranian can. But again, the IRGC and those 33 different, 33 or 35 different provinces and their commanders, they act autonomously, from each other. They do their own thing, and that's by design. So, going, back to Josh's question, I think that might be one challenge or one reason why He didn't, offload. The other thing that it's going to do, it brings up a bigger challenge. It was like, well, okay, well, how do you negotiate with them then? How do you come to a deal? The 60-day peace deal ran out yesterday, I think, or yesterday, whatever it was, or MOU or whatever the hell it was.
It never made it. The 60-day peace deal didn't last 6 hours.
Right. Well, I'm just saying the 60 days from the time that he announced the MOU or whatever, in his mind ended yesterday. So, going forward, again, I think we talked about this a couple of episodes again. It's like, well, who do you negotiate with, and who do you negotiate with that can actually make decisions and enforce that? Because I think at the beginning, again, being Iranian, there was probably some, we can do this, we can do that, and they're going to drag it out. But they don't have any control over these individual IRGC commands. And they're going to keep, especially the hardliners are going to keep doing that. My question is this, again, no boots on the ground. They're working around the oil right now. I'm not a big, I think I texted you guys earlier today. I'm not a big fan of, I'm not a huge critic of the oil companies because they do lose money. People forget about that and this and that, with some of the years. But right now, when you look at the price of oil, it's not proportionate to what the price of gas is. Gas should actually be a lot lower, at least where I'm at. And Luke, you brought up, a lot of it's regionalized and this and that. It's just not equal. I mean, we should be a dollar less than where we're at and where the price of oil has been for the last month, right? There's some fluctuations up and down. But anyway, I think, one thing Trump's made clear is, hey, man, midterms, no midterms, whatever is the case is, this is, he's kind of, I think he's put himself in that position. I think at this point, he acts like it's his decision and couldn't care less about the midterms. That's fine, whatever. But at this point, I mean, I don't think you have any other option, right? Is to find some way to off ramp this thing and be able to declare victory. What does that look like? I don't know.
So 2 problems, and I'll kick it at Josh. I just 2 problems that I have. Number one is what we always talk about, we always bitch about on this, is like we have something called a Central Intelligence Agency whose sole job it is to recruit senior IRGC leaders to, in the case of, and it may never happen, you recruited this guy early on, he was a lieutenant, and he's made it all the way up to general, and man, he died of a heart attack, and you never got to take advantage of a situation where, he could actually make a call to step in and do something. That is the CIA's job. They are supposed to have guys they recruited when they were lieutenants or in school, in Europe, whatever, to actually take the helm when something like this happens and do a real regime change, which, as Josh said, has not gone well in the Middle East. You know why? One of the reasons, one of the many reasons, but specifically Iran, because we have a shitty CIA. They cannot do their job. They cannot do the job that they were set up to do. That's the problem. Not second problem with the off ramp, but I'm kicking it straight to you, Josh, because I interrupted Roger rudely. Regime change, or not regime change, off ramp. Early on, I was like, this is sending China a message. A few weeks into it, I was like, this is sending China a message. The problem is message received. Okay. Message received. China, the message is there. It's done. It's like, we can shut this off if we want to. But now it's like, what are we doing at this point? It's like we sent that message, and that's a strategic message. You start messing Taiwan, you start doing this, you start doing that. You know what? We'll just shut down the strait again. But that ship has sailed. We already sent that message. So it's like, what are we waiting for? And I wonder, Josh, get your thoughts on this. Is Trump just like, screw it? People will get a nerd to this. As long as no major incidents happen, we're just going to keep doing this for whatever reason, whether it's to squeeze China or to keep the exports up or whatever it is. It's like, what? Like, okay, it's time to do something. It's whether we win or lose the midterms. Honestly, I don't care. Like, what are we doing?
I don't know what we're doing, and I don't know what Trump's thought process is, because he's not predictable, right? And that's one of the, it's not necessarily a bad thing, right? I think that's one of the things that kind of liked about Trump was dude's not predictable. Bush predictable, Clinton predictable, Barry predictable. Biden, predictable. You got Trump, man. It's like I don't know what this dude's gonna do. My issue with it is, yeah, you send China that message at the beginning, like you said. It's like we can turn the Strait of Hormuz off anytime we want to. Okay, so China is now pulling about 23% of their oil from Russia. So China's like, all right, cool. The Strait of Hormuz is closed. Cool, not a problem. One, China has a large strategic reserve of oil, and two, they just started buying it from Russia now, buying more. So really, short term, sure, it impacted China. Did it impact Russia? Yeah, but long term, there's no long term gain for us that outweighs the what it's going to cost us here at home. For that, because China's like, cool, yeah, you can shut down the Strait of Hormuz when you want to. All right. So it doesn't.
Yeah, but what are they paying for the Russian oil, and then what are they additionally having to pay to refine it? It's like I guarantee they're paying more because it's the law of supply and demand. They have no choice. Russia can name their price. And I get what you're saying. That's not a good thing. We should choke Russia, and we should not drive them closer together. But it's like
So I don't know.
They're definitely paying more. I guarantee you, they're paying more.
Well, maybe some of the things coming back is that China's, providing Russia with military equipment for the fight in Ukraine. So
cool. Let them both kill each other.
Hey, you know what? Ukrainians killing Russians and Chinamen. Cool.
And Iranians too.
Yeah. So, so looking at the Institute for the Study of War and stuff like that, obviously they're seeing Chinese equipment, show up on the battlefield. They're seeing North Korean equipment, which is essentially Chinese equipment anyway. And they're, obviously the Iranian Shahed drones. But, who knows what China's paying for it? China may not be paying anything for it. We're like, hey, you give us oil and I give you a whole bunch of new T-92s. I don't know. I'd have to dig more into that. But I don't see an end state. There's not been a communicated, clear end state in Iran. Like, hey, if it's regime change, just come out and say, we are changing the regime in Iran. And then you know what you do? All those poor little sailors on the Lincoln, guess what, buddy? You're doing 48, 72, 96-hour continuous ops now because you're launching a bunch of sorties and a bunch of tomahawks because we're killing everybody. Big K, little C. Right? Then let's go ahead and just change the regime. Cool. I'm all for it. But whatever we're going to do, let's do it and leave and be done with it. Probably should have done this during the uprising. That would have been a great time. Right? Your point to the agency, that would have been a great time to do this when you had baked in 40, 50,000 people in the streets that were going to be on your side. But you waited until half of them got carted off and, got put into a little hole in the desert. So I think Trump is effing this up. And I think he's going to make the same mistake as a lot of his predecessors made. Started an open-ended war in the Middle East with no defined end state. And now he's in a quagmire and he can't get himself out of it. And all three of us know that Trump's ego is not going to allow him to end it. It's not. He's
so crazy though because he could end it because his mentality is like I'll just end it and say I won because that's how he is.
He could, but he's not going to. I don't think he's going to.
So strange.
I don't think he's going to.
So strange. And I'm starting to side with Josh Roger that. The midterms, I don't know, man. But at the same time, I really think that there are far more liberals wish betting on Kalshi and Poly Market than there are conservatives wish betting. Put it to you that way. Dude, I made a lot of money on the Hong thing because I was like, oh, this dude's down. He's only got like 12. What was it? What's his name? The actual nominee? I'm sorry, I put you on the spot.
His name.
But
no, I forget his name.
The black dude that beat Hong. He was down to like 12% with 60% of the vote. And I was like, I'll put $3 on this. I ended up winning like $25, dude, off of $3 because I just went to bed and forgot about it. Woke up and I was like, holy shit, she lost. So anyway,
Did you hear about median strategies? Talking
No.
about your Kalshi bets and these polls. So I'll read this. I heard about it today. Mysterious polling firm behind fake election surveys closes after admitting social experiment. So this place called
no.
Yes.
Oh,
This place called Median Strategies, this company released polls indicating Democratic Mayor Karen Bass and Francesca Hong leading their rivals by wide margins. And remember, we were talking about that too, I think on text. We're like, man, they're up by like 9, 10, 12 points. They announced this week that the surveys were a hoax. It was a social experiment, basically saying that I can manipulate the public through polls that aren't verified and then close the doors. And now everybody's trying to like find a representative that, you know, they can talk to, you know, the quote unquote journalists or whatever. That place doesn't exist anymore. It's gone. It's fake polls.
It's like these betting markets, man. You know, that didn't even
That's my
occur to me.
point, though, right? Is the polls drive a lot of the betting market,
Yes.
or incidents and things like that. So you have that, and then when you look at and I do believe, and I'll say it up front here, I think the midterms are going to end up better than they should be for the GOP. Just when you look at history and then, you know, again, prices and stuff like that, I think it's going to turn out better for the GOP than it should be. Might actually be the fault of the DSA a little bit, but when you look at the map, like the Senate, when you look at what they're hoping to pick up to flip, I mean, they're looking at flipping Alaska, they're looking at flipping Maine, looking at flipping Texas. Like those are to go 3 for 3. Well, one, if that happens and they actually go 3 for 3, the GOP's got a major freaking problem, right? I think especially when you look at Texas, and I get there's challenges with Paxton and this and that, whatever, but you go 3 for 3 on those three. You know, you need to do what was the whole AAR they called from 2024 that the DNC wouldn't release. Kill study or whatever. I mean, that's one of those, man, you need to like have a triage report, like what in the heck is going wrong here? Which, you know, we could point to several things, but anyway, thought that was pretty interesting with your little Kalshi thing, because these things drive the betting markets, man. And I think you're right. I think a lot of those like, what the heck, man, out there down $5, I can win 60. You know,
well,
why not?
And people like their reasoning and stuff. It's like when Joe Rogan, and I'm just about done with Joe Rogan, man. Unless he has a good guest on, this guy, he's too all over the place. Whatever, I'm going to that. But he endorsed Tallarico, and I'm like, what are you doing? Like all this stuff you talk about, you know, trans and stuff like that, and you're endorsing this guy. When he endorsed him, the Kalshi market went nuts. And they're basically even. I think Tallarico actually pulled ahead. Now I hope I'm not repeating my 2000, what year was that? 2012 mistake of just like being in my bubble and being like this. There is no way Obama's going to beat Romney. Can you believe that? And I was in a bubble, and when Obama beat him, I was like, oh, I need to change the way I look at things. But the way I'm seeing things in Texas, I just don't see how Tallarico is going to beat him, yet they're neck and neck. And it's like, I don't know. In Alaska, come on. Maine, come on. And that dude up in Maine, did we talk about that dude marrying his sister? I think did we talk about that? Or his cousin.
Yeah,
His
I think
first
briefly.
cousin.
Dude, it's insane.
Is that legal in Maine? In most states,
Yeah, it was second. It was second cousin.
Is second cousin still?
Yeah, I know. It's weird.
Like,
it's weird.
Dude. Yeah. I mean, because it's illegal everywhere. It's illegal to marry your first cousin, right?
I don't know. I'd have to. I think most places it definitely is, because the odds.
Honestly, it should be.
With second cousins, like, okay, so if you marry someone who's absolutely not related to you, the odds of birth defects are around 1%. Okay.
Yep.
You marry your second cousin, it kicks up to 3%, which is still low. But first cousin, it kicks all the way up. It kicks up high, like 10%. So 1 in 10 chance. And then siblings, of course, we all know how that is. I always think of Wolf of Wall Street, where he asked him, So you married your cousin. That you remember that scene in Wolf of Wall Street? That was
Yeah.
hilarious.
Yeah.
Well, she
Yeah,
was
that was
hot.
pretty
You know,
cool.
I'm not gonna let some guy, you know.
It was like stop.
So
Yeah.
Josh, do you think that you still believe that it's going to be a sweep, Democrat sweep, or you think we keep the Senate and lose the House? What are you thinking?
I think we keep the House, but I think the margin is very, very small.
Really?
Yes. All right, I'm sorry, the Senate.
Okay.
Yeah, the Senate. No, the House is good. I think the House is done for. Right. We even had a House representative out here in North Carolina who just came up and was like, I'm not running again. And he turned around and endorsed a Democrat. And he was a Republican. And you're like, what are you doing, dude? Like, what is happening? I think the House is done for. I think we keep the Senate, but it's going to be a close. It's going to be a close margin. You might have a +1, +2 in the Senate, +2 maybe. The House is gone, and we could have kept the House, because here's the problem with that, right? Everybody's like, so okay, well, who cares? It's like, okay, well, one, the GOP is not getting much done anyway. So it really doesn't matter if we don't keep the House. It's not like they're going to pass the SAVE Act, right? It's not like they're going to pass any meaningful legislation. But what's going to cause is that is going to cause another CR government shutdown. Because now, hey man, the left controls the House. Guess what? It's after the midterms. We don't care if the government shuts down. We don't care, because we just got the midterms and we got 2 years, to roll with it again. So we could have kept the House. We could have kept the House and the Senate, because it's the economy, right? But the job market sucks. Gas is still high. Groceries are still high, and there's no end in sight. There's none, because that's what people are talking about at the dinner table. That's what people are talking about. I hear it. I hear people talking, right, out in public. People are bitching about gas. My kids are like, why is gas $3.60 something, $3.70 something a gallon here? But why is gas that high? Why are groceries still so high? All right.
So government shutdown. I agree with you. You are spot on that. If it transpires the way you said. So government shutdown. I'm going to kind of pivot here and maybe kick it to Roger. Not dismissing your points. You made some really good ones. How does that benefit, like government shutdown? How do Vance and Rubio and Ron DeSantis, who's in a very fortunate position right now, because if everything crashes on Trump in the administration, Vance and Rubio are in a very precarious position for different reasons, but both of them are because they're associated with the administration. You got DeSantis sitting over there. It's like, I got nothing to do with this. I'm down here in Florida running my state great. Right now, Roger, I am not digging on Vance at all. He's sounding like, all the stuff he's been talking about. He's sounding like a globalist. He's sounding like a centrist. He's sounding like George H.W. Bush is what he's sounding like, mixed with Bill Clinton. And maybe that's what the country needs, but I don't like it right now. What I do like is Rubio, and I think he's making a little play to, raise his, profile. He appeared on a podcast, and it was a hilarious podcast, him and his wife. It was very well done. He, the Pop-Tart thing, the keto diet thing, like it was very relatable. And I think all three of us are, kind of on the Rubio train. It's like, I like Rubio. I like that dude. And then you got DeSantis out there kind of waiting in the wings as if everything falls on its face and there's a government shutdown, and we're bogged down in Iran, DeSantis could come in and say, hey, y'all know what I'm saying. But I'm telling y'all, last night, listening to James Carville talking to Jesse Waters, y'all watch out for AOC, dude. Y'all watch out for her. She is changing her brand. She's branding herself in the image of Taylor Swift, saying, woke one was crazy. We're not like that anymore, is what she was saying. Is a crappy way to say it because she was all woke. But y'all watch out for her, man. Y'all watch out for AOC, because who else? Like Josh says about Josh Shapiro, pretty good candidate. But watch out for AOC, man, to get that Taylor Swift treatment. Watch out.
Yeah, and it's just some good news here. Alex Vindman lost in Florida to the DSA candidate, and so I think
yes.
So again, going back to, I think we keep the Senate. The House, I think, is going to be close, and I don't think you're going to be able to come up with House predictions until you start seeing how the rest of these primaries shake out. Because obviously, in a lot of these places, the GOP wants the DSA candidate to win. Now, be careful what you wish for, because you might just get it right in certain areas or whatever. But they want the DSA candidate to win because, from what you've seen, especially outside of the fringe, it's much harder for a DSA candidate to win the general election. Most people aren't like that. So I think it's probably 50-50 right now on whether the GOP holds the House or not, just based on what happens with the rest of the primaries. And I think you're spot on, dude. I think to sum up Vance, he's become the vice president. He's just really not out there doing anything newsworthy. Kind of came off a quick start with Trump, and I don't know if it's lately because Trump has just kept him in the shadows for a specific reason or whatever, but you really don't hear a lot from Vance anymore, not lately. You know what? The big thing that Rubio is getting, and this could actually help DeSantis, Rubio is getting mic time, and he's getting exposure, right? And he's people are realizing, even on the left, they're like, man, this guy's a pretty funny guy, and he's got a little bit of that Trump, I'm going to combat the media and be a little aggressive, get a little pushback, but he's got a good sense of humor. Sometimes it's a little dry. And so it's like, is he serious? Is he not? No, he's joking, whatever. But he's getting that mic time, and he's getting that time in front of the TV. And that was my, we go all the way back with DeSantis. That was always my issue with DeSantis, was like, man, that dude needs to take acting classes, right? And it's not necessarily acting classes. He's got to have more TV time, because, it's the fake smile. We'll get there. It's like you're in a family photo and you're 12. Smile, Joshua. Okay. And they try to make it. And I always got that feeling with DeSantis, whereas Rubio, I think, is finding who he is. He's pretty grounded. And I think in his position, it's pretty easy for him to separate himself from the Trump admin on some of the day-to-day, and affordability issues or whatever. When you talk about Vance, man, you're gonna have a hard time distancing yourself from Trump. I mean, you're on that ticket. And in theory, you help make a lot of those decisions, and you provide advice and assistance, unless you're just going to totally, pull a Kamala and be like, well, he's a racist, and he raped some people or whatever the case is, which he's not going to do that. So I think it can be a tough sled for Vance. What'll be interesting is when you look at DeSantis and Rubio, man, that would be an excellent ticket. I just not sure that you see either one of them taking a back seat and saying, I'm going to be the VP. And it'll be what I do hope happens is, and I think you'll see this between all three of them, I don't think you'll see as much mudslinging. I think Rubio, you've seen some aggressiveness. He likes to banter back and forth with the media, not as malicious as what Trump is. And DeSantis and even Vance, I haven't seen malicious interviews with them on TV. Rubio is probably the more pointed individual, but again, I think he's just finding himself and getting that mic time, getting that TV time. I mean, he's found out who he is, and he's refining his TTP. So I think when he eventually runs, which I think he will run, I think right now he's the man to beat. So you typed will Rubio resign? I think he will, right? Because what's their term? What do they normally run? Like 2 years.
Secretary of State? Well, did
he's holding like 8 positions. So
I just typed that in there because if he did resign, that's your sign. You know,
100%.
that's it.
Yeah, 100%.
But I just thought that was it. I was like, that didn't occur to me. I just threw that in there. I don't know. You're right. I mean, Secretary of State, like, did Hillary resign? Did she resign to run for Senate or something? Or what was it? You remember?
No, I don't remember.
I was just curious. I don't think she
Yeah,
resigned.
I don't remember.
Sorry.
I can't remember. I'm done with Vance. He's so just vanilla milk toast. He is. He's not. He has the opportunity to get a lot of mic time. He has the opportunity to, get out and do stuff. But I don't know if it's him saying, "Hey, I don't want to." You can't show Donald up, right? You can't do that. You can't show the boss up. And number two, I don't know what his play is, but it was like, hey man, you're obviously, I'm gonna say you're next in line, but it's like, hey, like the only thing you can do from here is run for president, because you look at vice presidents who didn't run for president or become president, dudes just faded. Like you don't hear about them anymore. I think, it's like I said, a week or two ago, I think a Rubio Ron DeSantis ticket would be straight fire. Ron DeSantis, and I completely agree. That was one of the things during the last, primaries, like, bro, you got to stop with the fake smile and stuff like that. Nobody wants to see that shit. Nobody, like, out of all the things we want in politics right now, it's just somebody who's real. Like, we don't want any level of fakeness. And
his weak point was that acting stuff, dude. That was his biggest weak point.
It was bad. Yeah, it was really bad. And I'm a big DeSantis fan, but it was really bad. When Rubio was a senator from Florida, I did not like him. I was like, this guy is not effective. He's not charismatic. But to be fair, again, you talk about it's the mic time, because as a senator, the only really time you get to see him is if you go to a town hall. If you don't go to the town hall, then all you hear him is on a committee, right? And you got what? Okay, you only hear the dude for 3 to 5 minutes, and it's all canned statements anyway. So it's like, you really don't, get to actually listen to the person. The podcast that he just did with his wife that you mentioned, that was by design, 100% by design. His wife and they're joking, they're telling funny stories. She's kind of getting on his case a little bit. And he's like, I'm the problem. She gets on my case. She keeps me in line. She's, the brains behind the op, like everything. Like it was, all that was by design, but it made him personable and it made him relatable, like you guys, said. But he's crushed it. That aside, like he's crushed it as National Security Advisor, Secretary of State, doing both at the same time. We said it before. Like the guys, he has found his spot. He has found his niche. But I think you have Rubio with his time as, Secretary of State, National Security, and then you have Ron DeSantis coming in, having been in Congress, having been a governor. That's a strong ticket. That's a really, really strong ticket. Rubio appeals to, Hispanics. I think that's a very strong ticket, barring anything crazy, right? Like, it comes out that, Ron DeSantis like beats puppies or whatever. So we'll see what happens. You know who you don't hear anything out of right now? Kristi Noem. She just fell off the face of the earth. She was like, I'm not going to have a Nancy Mace moment. Like, I'm out of here.
Well, I got to admire Nancy Mace. Everybody's bagging on her. It's like, what's y'all's problem, dude? Whatever.
I'm good with it.
Yeah.
I'm good with it.
What do you think, Josh? What do you think about like the Democrat side? What do you think about that then? Who do you think they're going to put up, and who's got the best chance? What's a good ticket? Because AOC is so young. If she teamed up with Shapiro, like, I agree. But if she teamed up with Shapiro, it's like, put all this Jew stuff behind us. And dude, that's a winning ticket. Dude, Shapiro and AOC, I'm sorry. That would be a popular ticket for Democrat. I think you know what I'm saying.
I know what you're saying, but you got to, again, it comes down to the swing states. Who can win the swing states? And that's why I don't see Newsom being a ticket. Newsom's not winning Pennsylvania. He's not winning Florida. He's just not. Now, you get it, like you said, Shapiro AOC, Shapiro, maybe what's his face from Kentucky, Bashir, Andy Bashir. You get him. Those guys can win swing states because that's what it is. It all comes down to swing states. Right? Nobody's trying to figure out how to win. No Democrats trying to figure out how to win Oklahoma. So AOC is going to be a problem. I don't think she's a problem for 2028. Now,
I don't think she's a problem in the general.
Stump. She's going to stump for whoever, obviously is running in 2028, but she's not going to, I don't think that she's going to make it. I don't think she makes it out of the primary in 2028 if she throws her hat in that ring. I don't.
And the Democrats are so retarded because I think that they are savvy enough to realize it's about the swing states, right? And that's why they picked Tim Walz. It's like, no, you know what I'm saying? Because they were like, oh, well, here's a Midwest guy, it's great, right? It's like, no, dude is a closeted homo who beats his kids, and not even a homo, he's a pedo. That I guarantee you, Tim Walz is a pedo. There's no way he's not. Who beats his own
tampons
kids
in the boys' bathroom?
Oh my god!
It's
like we're trying to inject logic into the Democrat thought process, the DNC thought process.
Well, that's why I say Josh Shapiro, and you guys are like, no, the Dems are never going to support because he's Jewish. It's like, dude, like their hypocrisy knows no bounds. They will get behind Josh Shapiro and they will toe that party line in a heartbeat if they're told to.
If they think they'll win.
Yeah.
But again, I
don't even believe that because right now he's their best candidate. I mean, that's, it's like he's the best candidate they have at winning. And Josh, you mentioned all the reasons, and we agree with that. I'm just saying they haven't done it yet. Kamala didn't put him on the ticket because he's a Jew. Democrats ain't going to do it, man. They are not, and especially with the DSA and that hardcore left, Palestine.
100%. He's the best candidate.
Not doing it.
He's the best,
but he is the best candidate they have, and they won't. That dude won't make it out of the primaries. He should, but he won't.
Here's why I think they didn't put Josh Shapiro on the ticket with Kamala, right? Much like when the GOP threw McCain out there and was like, you know what? Sarah Palin would make a great running mate. The GOP knew we don't have anybody that's ready that can compete with Barry. They saw the internal polling. The left saw the internal polling with Kamala. They knew like there's no way she's going to beat Donald Trump. So what do? We don't waste a good candidate, a good potential candidate, 4 years from now to pair up with her. You're not going to sacrifice Josh Shapiro to run with Kamala Harris. Are you crazy? Against the internal polls that they saw? It's like, dude, the polls were so effing bad. It was almost like Reagan in 84, right? You're looking at that and they're like, dude, she's going to get crushed. So they're like, we're not doing that. Dude, throw whoever else out there. We don't care. Put her with the pedo. There you go. Tim Walz. Sacrificial lamb. Save Shapiro and the crew for 2028.
Look, look, Josh. Everything you say makes sense. It really does. But always discount everything.
There's always a but.
Everything you say makes sense, and I think all the listeners are tracking. And Roger's like nodding his head, like, yeah. But I think that we're giving them too much credit for strategic thought, and same with the RNC. I'm not saying that the RNC is so smart and great and all this stuff. They're just as big of idiots because these people educated these Ivy Leagues. It's like, look, Josh, what you said makes sense. And we all want to hope we live in a world where people are looking at this critically and be like, yes, this is great. Because who used to think like that was Carville. But they ain't listening to Carville anymore. And it's like,
it's a good thing they did.
Again, I'm going to say it one more time. I think I've said it half a dozen times. Everything you say makes sense. It's just, I don't think they're that smart. Well,
I still think you look at Kamala and Joe Biden, like when you look at her 107 days and then you look at the last 2 years, dude, they were set up. They were being sabotaged from the inside. I mean, dude, you look at 100%. Right. Look at the last 2 years of Biden. There was no way I'd have put that dude on camera more than 42 seconds at a time. Right.
No.
Like, hey man, we're gonna have to edit the shit out of this, and everything's gonna be pre-recorded. Everything. It's gonna be like going to a Guns N' Roses concert where Axl Rose ain't singing this shit. All right, he's just moving his lips, he's lip syncing it, and this has been pre-recorded. There's just no way you do that, and everything up to the debates, just everything. It's like, dude, he is. You are either severely incompetent, or you're setting him up for failure. And I do, it's funny you bring up the McCain thing, because I do think you're spot on with that. And, that might've been the deal with Kamala as well. I remember when McCain was like, why are we picking this dude? It's like, seriously, like, it's almost like you're throwing in the towel. We're not even running. I mean, come on, dude. Like things can happen, right? Dirt comes out and this and that. And it's just like, why are we picking this guy? And, you look at, Kamala picking her, well, her picking her without winning a single primary vote, man, isn't that crazy? But Democrats are notorious for it. I just, again, I think Shapiro is very. I think when you look at Clinton Democrats, yeah, that would be, Shapiro is a logical choice. I think when you look at what the Democrat Party's become now, and especially with his pro-Israel stance, obviously his anti-Palestinian stance, some of the comments he's made, it's almost like, hey man, you're asking for another divide within the Democrat Party. Which I'd rather have that divide versus the DSA, but it's like, I think they're worried about that fracture. But again, if he decides to throw his name, well, I say this, you decide to throw his name in the hat and run and say, man, maybe if I win the primaries, I'll be the candidate. But Democrats have just shown, going all the way up to being Bernie Sanders, right? Sandered, to being Joe Biden, to being Graham Plattner. Like, it doesn't matter if you win or not. They're going to pull you. And not even give a reason. And what's crazy is there's like no uproar, man. Like, look at Bernie Sanders. I get he's a socialist. I get all that, communist, whatever. Like, dude, I don't even know how you can associate with the Democrat. It's like they literally pulled you off the ticket. Like, meh. And they cheated. I mean, they legit cheated. Like, eh.
Do you remember?
God bless.
Do you remember the Bernie Sanders thing when Hillary was running? It was the first time they screwed him over.
Yeah.
Which was worse, in my opinion.
Well, that's what I'm talking about. Yeah.
When he got up there on stage, do you remember that?
Yes.
And he gave his little speech, and that's why Bernie Sanders is a bitch. He's a bitch.
100%.
Just like Ted Cruz is. He got up there, made his speech, and then made a big deal about walking out with his little entourage. Do you remember that? That's one of the most pathetic things I've ever seen. Ever. It's like, dude, like, if you really believed in what you're doing, Bernie Sanders is a pathetic bitch. I'm going to say it again. He whatever. So, Josh, we got a little while left. So, are you tracking, Josh, this case of this woman who strangled her 2 or 3 kids? Are you tracking that at all?
Dude, that's insane.
I wish I wasn't, but
you are.
X. Yeah.
Well, so I haven't been following it close enough, because a lot of the females I see, this woman strangled, was it 2 or 3 kids?
3.
3. She was on all kinds of SSRIs, and there is a lot to this case, but she did it. There's like almost zero doubt she did it. No one's prosecuting her husband. She admitted to it. And what I'm seeing on X is a lot of females coming out and defending her. Not defending her, but just like, well, you don't understand the whole thing. You don't get it. What is going on? Like, the Jim Halpert from The Office. What is going on? It's like, what the hell is happening? You have a woman drop the N-bomb, the hard R, in Minnesota or wherever it was. It's like, people lock her up. This woman who strangled her 3 children, it's like, well, you don't understand the whole situation. The husband's probably a little bit at fault. It's like, what is going on? Have we moved from abortion to in that demonic scene? Was that Wisconsin, or was that Minnesota?
Massachusetts. The one that just passed abortion at birth.
That demonic scene. Have we moved from that to, well, if you're stressed out and have to be on antidepressants, I guess it's justifiable if you strangle 3 kids with a, exercise band. It's like, what? Like, help me understand, John. help me understand this. What is going on?
She decided to strangle her 3 kids rather than, shoot up a school. That is the whole case is wild, right? So, and they were 3 very young kids, like they were toddlers and an infant. Like they were not, anyway, not that it matters. They're, how old they are. But so she is claiming that she was struggling with postpartum depression, right? She did it, and they're calling it postpartum psychosis. Right. But she, like you said, she's doped up on SSRIs. Her husband, who they initially blamed, right? All these people are like, her husband really did it. She sent her husband to go get takeout food. Her husband wasn't even there. And the cops were like, no, we know your husband, like he wasn't at the house. Right. We could see where he was. He wasn't at the house. So she's strangled. She's like, I want takeout food. This dude comes back 30 minutes later. She's laying in the yard because she jumped out the second floor window, broke a bunch of shit. Now she's paralyzed from the waist down, and his 3 kids are dead. Right. Because she snapped. And then here come, dude, I've said it before. I'm going to say it until the day I die. Leftist white women are the greatest threat to this country. Hands down. They are the greatest insider threat to this nation. Leftist white women. They are a scourge upon the earth. A scourge. Right? They're all defending her saying, well, I get it. I've wanted to murder my kids. And it's like, okay, hold up. Like we all joke, like, you know what, man? My kids, the only reason they're alive is, because they're funny, whatever, right? You don't go murder your kids. That's not, I get, is postpartum depression a thing? I guess. Shit, I don't know. I've never had a kid, so I couldn't tell you. Right? But I've never been so mad. I've never been so upset that I decided that, well, I'm just going to kill my kids. But I also haven't been all coked up on SSRIs and fucking cheap box wine either. So, it's a crazy ass case, but at the end of the day, she admitted to it. Her lawyer's like, yeah, she did it. So it's like, okay, cool. Just go ahead and save the taxpayer a lot of money. Strangle her with an exercise band until she stops breathing and just be done with it. But you got this guy, and there's still there's some soccer mom SSRI laden conspiracy theories out there. They're doing like a reverse Dateline, trying to frame the dad, saying the dad did it. All the dad knows is that, hey man, all my kids are dead and my wife is crazy and now she's paralyzed from the waist down and she's going to go to jail for the rest of her life because I don't think Massachusetts has a death penalty. So he's like, because, I don't know, she was, stressed out and narked up. It's crazy, man. It's crazy. But the fact that leftist white women are out defending her in droves, not even remotely surprising.
Well,
that's the least surprising thing of this whole case.
They're defending her. One, I mean, obviously she's come out and pleaded, guilty to it. Clearly she did it. Who else should be held responsible are her doctors.
100%.
Have you guys seen, and I'll read this. Have you guys seen, so this is 4 months, okay, within a 4-month time period. Have you seen the prescription she's on? So within 4 months, Zoloft, Ativan, Atarax, Vistarel, Buspar, I'm going to murder half this stuff, Deserel, Prozac, Ambien, Remeron, Klonopin, Seroquel, Valium, Lamictal, and Elavil, all within 4 months. Like, who was prescribing all this shit? She's got text messages where she's like, hey, I think I'm becoming an addict. She's tried to kill herself. She's obviously got a problem, so it's like, again, I agree. I mean, she's guilty as all get out. Where's the accountability for the docs and the mental health professionals that she was seeing? Like, you prescribe all of that within 4 months? Seriously? That's why I think she does her time. I think she does her time in a psych ward is what happens. I think that's what's going to end up happening. They're going to send her a psych ward.
So maybe, and I think we're all against, gun manufacturers being, held liable for mass shootings, right? maybe I say there's a 1% chance there's a silver lining behind this thing. Because like Roger said, maybe the doctors should have some liability in this because they prescribed her so much shit. And I blew somebody's mind today as they weren't defending. They were just like, there's more to the case, Luke. You don't understand. There's more to the case. I'm like, there's 3 dead kids. And I was like, do you agree? Do you at least acknowledge that this person was on multiple SSRIs and definitely antipsychotics? And the person I was talking to was like, well, yeah. And I was like, that's a problem. And I blew her mind with the mass shooting thing. Blew her mind. She's like, I didn't realize that. And I was like, yeah. So maybe in this case, if these crazy white liberal women get so worked up and held, this, maybe we'll start to address the problem. And when there's a mass shooting, maybe, these companies manufacturing these SSRIs and the antipsychotics and the doctors who prescribe them, maybe they'll be held liable because that's a big problem. Josh says the awfuls, affluent white liberal females. Is that right? Whatever. If they're the biggest problem, SSRIs and antipsychotics are a big problem too, because it's downhill from that. SSRIs and box wine. I had to post that. But I've never been coked up on SSRIs, washing it down with box wine. That's one of the funniest things you've ever said. But dude, I mean, I doubt there will be a silver lining behind this, but spot on, Roger. It's like, we've got to stop doing this. As a nation, we have to stop doing it.
I wonder what the percentage of people are in the United States who are on some type of SSRI, and I wonder how many of them are women.
Oh, well, Roger's typing that into Chat GPT right now, and I guarantee it's high.
I guarantee you it's probably a number that you'll be like, ooh, that's not good.
Let me ask you this, Josh. And I don't mean to go all lib on you or get too philosophical on this, but if you have that many women in this country, because I guarantee it's higher than men, guarantee it, way 100%. Higher. How much of that?
We don't take SSRIs. We just start podcasts.
Well, yeah. But how much of that, how much do men and the culture and the culture of men in this country, how much of the blame is laid upon that? Not men in general, but the culture, like how far we've come. Because if, women didn't used to be on these SSRIs, and I think that men used to be generally stronger in this country than they are. Not just stronger physically, but just more constitution, more toxic masculinity. I mean, do you think any of the blame lays at the feet of this culture where men are emasculated and all the commercials on TV are the husband being a dumbass and the wife fixing everything? I mean, you think there's anything to that?
Possibly. I don't know. I haven't really thought about it. But there's possibly some truth to that. At the end of the day, it doesn't have to be it doesn't have to be the 1950s, Stepford wives, right? So like, hey, you just, you're seeing, not heard, stuff like that. It doesn't have to be that. There's a happy medium. But at the end of the day, like a lot of the things that, women are worried about today, they shouldn't, there are a lot of things they shouldn't have to worry about because your man should be taking care of that. And it's not that women can't do it. It's that they shouldn't have to do it, right? Because the men should be taking care of that stuff. My wife is completely capable of doing anything. She raised 3 kids while I was trotting all over the globe. She couldn't get a hold of me. She couldn't do anything. We got kids breaking bones in gymnastics, this, that, and the other. She's moving houses, stuff like that. She could do it, but she shouldn't have to. That's a lot of that stuff that she had to do. It's my job, right? And so, yeah. And I don't know, maybe because they've had to, shoulder a bunch more stuff because, we've emasculated men, that stuff piles up, that stuff stresses them out. And, they're like, hey, maybe the only way I can deal with this is SSRIs. I don't know.
Well, I look at y'all's wives. I know both y'all's wives fairly well, I'd say. My wife as well. They all have, to me, it seems, I may be wrong, but all three of our wives have one thing in common, uh, at least, is that all three of them seem to take a lot of pride in raising their kids, a lot of pride in raising them up and being that mom and, taking care of them. And I just, but at the same time, both y'all's wives can work. They can do all those things. They can be the super, you know, the mom who takes care of the kids and the one who works also. But like Josh said, it's like they don't have to though. They just do. And I just see that kind of fading. God, Roger just said about
Yeah. So real
13%
quick,
of the human go ahead, Roger. Sorry.
about 13% specifically on SSRIs, and those are just estimates from like the CDC. So I mean, you could probably assume that's going to be a little bit higher than that. 65% are women. Obviously, the remainder are men. When you look at all psychiatric meds, including SSRIs, it's about 20%. Again, estimates probably a little bit higher. So 1/5 the population, at least, is on some form of meds. Break that down even further, because how many people do we have? Like, how many kids do we have in the country? Like 10 and younger. Because you figure we have like 318 million people, roughly. How many kids do we have?
Third of them.
200 million, whatever, right? Adults left, or people that would be in that category of taking those type of meds. So you're looking at 20% of the population estimated is on some type of psychiatric meds, and understand that let's say 33% of the population would be under the age where they would be on those type of meds, right? It's crazy, dude. So it's 318. So you're looking at 62 million people on some type of psychiatric meds.
It's crazy. And I've said this on the podcast before, that selective serotonin reuptake inhibitors, SSRIs, there's a lot of different types of them. But in almost every case, I've done some research on this. If you are prescribed an SSRI, an antidepressant, you have to be on an antipsychotic. That's why antipsychotics, there's less brands of those, are one of the most commonly used drugs other than statins and insulin in the United States. It's a sad case, but here's a sadder case, is that now we're going to spend the last few minutes, because Josh, I feel like we've cheated Josh, but we did talk about Flock in the last episode, and we don't want to just beat it up totally. But so Josh, you said, we kind of cheated you here because we only have about 10 minutes, but so Flock, man, what are your thoughts, man? We talked about it a lot, but let's hit it again.
They every single flock camera should be destroyed. That's just what it is. There's I've seen it on social media. I don't know if you guys have seen it, to where they're saying like Halloween night, we have people around the country are gonna deflock. I don't know if that's the same when everybody was like, we're gonna invade Area 51 and clap alien cheeks, and stuff like that.
I remember that. That was fun.
It's so wild, man.
Remember the military had to come out like, we will shoot you. Like,
yeah, they had to come out and be like, guys, you will get shot. So anyway, again, man, this is a conversation for longer, for the beginning of an episode, not the last 10 minutes. When you take a look at what Flock is and what it's quickly becoming, right? And now that you guys, I sent you guys the drone thing. So Flock cameras are going to start becoming equipped. They're going to have a little, where they're at, they're going to have a little garage, basically, of little drones that can deploy autonomously. And, they can read your license plate, they can take video, whatever. And, the capability is that thing can go up to about 1,000 feet and still read your license plate. Well, the field of view at 1,000 feet is a lot wider than just my license plate that thing's reading. So what if whoever owns that Flock camera, what if they want to see, how tall is the wall around your backyard, Roger?
Roughly 6 feet.
Roughly 6 feet, right? So that's what my privacy fence is. Do you think you have some degree of an expectation of privacy in your backyard with a 6-foot wall?
100%. 100%.
Yeah. So what if your HOA decides, you know what? We're going to launch our flock drones and we're going to take a look in, old Roger's backyard to make sure he's, he's congruent with the HOA covenants. You good with that? But that's what it's coming to.
It is, and
Right?
not to cut you off real quick. What's funny, because we talked about this before with specifically with that HOA thing, because you don't have any recourse. Like if you could drones, right? So just regular drones, people have their, DJI's. They fly up, and they do it quite a bit here. They fly up and they hover over your backyard. You can't shoot it down. They're like, hey man, the best thing that, they're like, the only thing you can do is like file a police report and report it to the FAA. Anyway, that's more to your point, but sorry.
Yeah. What about when it's the cops? What about
Yeah.
what about when it's the police that are doing it? Who you gonna report it to the FAA? FAA is gonna be like, law enforcement. Who cares? That's what I'm saying, right? And it goes.
I'm gonna call Matt and report it to him.
So Matt's not gonna help you. Matt's gonna take away all your rights. He's gonna take away your phone rights.
He's like, what were you doing wrong?
He's going to take your pocket constitution out of your backpack, throw it on the ground, and piss on it. Is exactly.
Yeah, exactly. No, and that's my problem with the flock, right? It's not just going to be a license plate reader that says this dude is speeding or this dude was here, this day, this time. It's going to evolve into so much more, and by that point, you're already down that road. And so that's why you got to stop it now. You have to stop it now. And that's my, dude, that's just that's just not even scratching the surface of what all I have to say on flock.
And it is happening in some areas. Like, we were talking about earlier, it's like, there's a big push here throughout Arizona to deflock, I think Pinell County, I think we said that the other day, Pinell County's canceled their contract. There's a bunch of cities here canceling their contract. My guess is it's going to become a red-blue state thing, red-blue city thing, red-blue county thing. Your blue cities, counties, states are going to be all flocked up and, or whatever the next version is. And then most of your red states will probably end up deflocking, their areas are not renewing their contract.
Yeah, it goes back to the earlier time where it's like, Josh, everything you're saying makes sense. It does. It makes sense. You're right. But I just, I'm blackpilling lately, and I just feel like we're so far down a road of surveillance, and not just the government doing it, but the private sector doing it, that the government can buy that information from or subpoena that information. It's just like, I agree with you, Josh, you're right. But it's like, I feel like we're so far down a road that, you're making fun of us like, oh, but my phone. It's like, I know what you're saying, but at the same time, we gave this up so long ago. We gave it up. And you like the post I made about the sheep says, why are you worried about the Patriot Act and FISA if you're not doing anything wrong? And dude, back then we talked about it on the podcast. I was like, yeah, I thought like that because I was an idiot. That was 25 years ago. I was an idiot, but I've learned more, and it's just like, I don't know, dude. I'm so black-pilled on it. It's just like, flock, whatever. Yeah, we're gonna do this thing, and like I said in the chat earlier, it's like, yeah, they're gonna get rid of flock because it's viral, and then they're gonna replace it with something else. And I don't like it, and I'm not saying it should be that way, but, and I would say it's not even the government that's doing this. The government is benefiting off of it. But like you said, you were talking about the 6-foot fence and what that camera view takes in. It's like the police or whoever it's going to be, law enforcement is going to buy a certain subscription to the flock security that they can only read the license plate number. But that flock drone and that flock camera is collecting so much more data, The capabilities of it, and they're storing it in a cloud somewhere to sell it to Walmart or Department of Transportation or whomever.
China.
It's just China, whomever. And it's like, I'm just black-pilled. It's not, I want to go on the record, Josh. I don't disagree with you. I'm just like,
No, I know.
Dude, it's like lay back and let it happen.
I know. And I'm gonna blow your mind here in a second. So think about the other implications to Flock, right? So think about anybody with money can buy that data. China, cartels. If I'm the cartel, I'm buying the Flock data. If I can get my Flock data, dude, if I can get a Flock camera that's set up around an embassy, set up around a known, DEA, ATF, HSI, all that stuff location, I'm absolutely 100% buying it. Like, you can't drive onto Fort Bragg without driving past a Flock camera, right? There's also national security implications on this stuff that people aren't looking at. And I get the whole, I get being blackpilled, right? Because I've been blackpilled for a very long time on a lot of things. But if you go, if you use use the excuse, and where are we at? We're at 155. You use the excuse of, we're too far down this road. All right, well, go back.
It's not an excuse. It's not an excuse. I'm just saying, it's not an excuse.
Go back to the great orator's speech. Should Moses have told the children of Israel to live in slavery under Pharaoh? Should Christ have refused the cross? Should the patriots at Concord Bridge thrown down their guns and refused to fire the shot heard around the world? At what point you got to draw? At some point, you have to. You've given up a lot, but you have to draw a line. At some point, you have to say, okay, we're not crossing this line anymore. And hopefully, people realize that this, that Flock is it. This is the one we're doing.
And that's why I'm blackpilled, because you're very point, and I agree with you. Again, everything Josh is saying is right. It's a Captain America speech, which is, the Reagan, I can't remember the title of the speech, the 1964, whatever. Shit, I can't remember the name of that speech, but it's the Captain America.
Time for choosing.
The time for choosing, yes. It's the Captain America speech when everyone's telling you you're wrong and all this stuff. You got to plant yourself next to the tree of, truth and say, no, you're wrong. I get it. But it's like we were saying in the text earlier. It's like people are just going to move on to the next thing, and they're going to forget that this was ever a thing. Not you, not me, not Roger. But it's just like, yeah, everyone's so worked up about this. What are they going to be worked up about a month from now? I don't disagree with you, and I'm not making excuses. I'm just saying, bro, I'm so disillusioned with people's willingness to stand up for this stuff for a prolonged period of time, because we've been whatever. You know what I'm saying?
Well, dude, it comes down to just like 23andMe, and here's the major, Josh talks about data, right? And I mean, this is a serious question. I had to look it up, but it's like, okay, so Flock does not sell data because the client owns the data. The customer owns the data. Now, hold on. Let me finish, Luke, before you roll your F and I's at me. Why? Because their policy says it. What legal constraints do they have to where tomorrow, next quarter, earnings are down? So what do they start doing? Well, it's like, well, we don't sell data. Why don't you sell data? Well, because our policy says it. Well, who says you can't sell it next quarter? Right? Or the quarter after that. There are no constraints to, and that, obviously one of the biggest concerns, there are no constraints or nothing that prevents them from really changing their policy and saying, well, hey, we are now selling data. And oh, by the way, they still are responsible to answer and respond to subpoenas. So there is, and I don't know all the ins and outs of their data storage and stuff, but my assumption is they have some type of access to all the data, regardless who the client is. So they can provide, or respond to a legal subpoena or a judicial subpoena, right? But that's what it all comes down to is, hey, man, they're not selling the data today. That's like, which one was it? Was it 23andMe that went out of business or whatever it was? And then people were freaking out. It's like, who's buying the data, right? Yeah, they're not giving away right now, but they might next quarter, they might next month. And that's the issue. There's nothing to prevent them from doing it.
See, and Josh was right. We should have spent more time on this because we're coming up on the time. But dude, what you're reading, I've looked at the agreement. I've looked at what is signed on the dotted line. Yes, you're partially right. The capabilities of the Flock camera are far more than what the customer is buying. The agreement
100%.
Actually states you own the data. You own the data that we've agreed we're going to give you. Basically, that's what it says. All the other data It's not addressed. You made a good point, Roger. I'm just saying there's, and I'm with the spirit of your comment. I'm saying, dude, there's way more data, and it's in the fine print, and whatever. I'm black-pilled. I agree with Josh. I'm going to let him close it out. Sorry, guys.
All right, we're going to have more flock talk on the next episode. We're going to dive into it. So, all right. Hey, 3 episodes in what, like 3 weeks? We're killing it now. We're giving the people what they asked for. So until next time, keep those canteen cups full and tightly secured.